doing, boys and girls, children of all ages? Welcome to the main event summer sidecard. Ryan Baldwin here, wishing I was sitting on an actual beach instead, just the fake beach for the summer. And over there in Texarkana with a new hat for the day, the only Mason Shepard sporting the Flash hat. Yeah, you have a plethora of nerd hats, and it's
yeah. Well, I like to wear what I represent. Each hat for me is like a trophy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Speaking of trophies,
yes, love it. That's a great segue, Mason.
Boom.
The Golden State Warriors lifted their NBA Finals trophy for the fourth time in 8 years after winning in Game 6 in Boston. Steph Curry, 34 points, NBA Finals MVP to the surprise of absolutely nobody. And I had kind of predicted this after Game 5, which we didn't get a chance to talk about Game 5. I think last week we talked about Game 4, but after Game 5, when the Celtics couldn't beat the Warriors after Steph Curry put up, what was it, 15 points. 0 for 9 from beyond the arc. It was, if you can't win there, you're just not going to win. I think that really destroyed the Celtics mentally, especially after, they go on a 14-2 opening run, and then the Warriors go on a 35-8 run between the first and second quarters. It was done at that point. You could feel it.
Yeah, because the sad thing when it comes to the Celtics, and I think what it is when it comes down to just morale being depleted, is because as bad as Steph played in Game 5, the Celtics played even worse because their ball security sucks. And it's one of those things where it's like Steph can miss shots all day, and that's a rarity. But when you don't capitalize on it with moving the ball effectively, and that was even seen in this game, the Celtics could not move the ball fluidly at all.
22 turnovers.
Mike White would get the ball, and then he would, I don't know where to go. Where's Jason Tatum? Here you go. And then Tatum would get it, and then he would just throw stuff up, and it would just, come on, Derek White, not Mike. Derek White.
But Mike White he throws it up for a different team.
But it's still green and white, which is great.
Fair. Okay.
It was just seeing things like that, and the Celtics would just jack up shots. And we talked about it with Game 1, and I said, and it was shown in the stats, the team that controlled the paint won the games. And when the Celtics controlled the paint and scored more than the Warriors inside, those were the games that they won. When they didn't, those were the games that they lost. And it's one of those things where you and I both talked about how if they don't play their own game, and if they don't stop trying to compete with the Warriors in that area, they weren't going to win. But then we didn't keep in mind, well, if you don't hold on to the ball and you don't play disciplined basketball, you're not going to win either way.
Well, and I mean, your bench, if you're the Boston Celtics in Game 6, put up 5 points in the entire game. 5 points from the bench. Jordan Poole had 15 points off the bench.
Yep.
I think, the Celtics beat themselves in turnovers. The Warriors played well, but the Celtics didn't do themselves any favors. And their key players coming off the bench didn't contribute, like White and Williams. They didn't contribute, whereas Jordan Poole came off and he didn't shoot great. He shot 5 for 12, which is pretty solid, 3 for 8 from beyond the arc, but he put up 15 points.
Yeah.
He tripled the point output of your bench just himself. And then, of course, Curry with 34 is just
Curry. Curry is Curry, and we'll get to that a little bit in here because I have an interesting question to bring up because we discussed this when we were back at school on Sports Zone. But to continue about with the game and just the analysis of the entirety of it, if Jason Tatum is going to be, the new up and coming and rising star in this league, I think he just, because the Celtics, with all the bad things that we can say, and believe me, we could sit here and talk about how bad the Celtics played all day. But I think, we do have to give them a little bit of props for making it this far because that is impressive. But at the same time, if Jason Tatum doesn't want to be known as one of the guys in the NBA who, when it becomes to playoff time, doesn't play very well, he's got to tighten up his game because he didn't play very well really throughout the finals in this series.
Yeah.
So,
let me trying to pull up the recent games here. So again, in this finals, game 1, 3 for 17 with 12 points. Game 2, 8 for 19, 28 points, not bad. Game 4, game 3, he got 26 points, but it was on 9 of 23 shooting.
Mm-hmm.
That's you need better than that. And then again, same thing in game 4, 23 points on 8 of 23 shooting. Game 5 had a pretty good game, 27 points, 10 of 20. And then, of course, 13 points, 6 of 18 in game 6. Not what you want from your superstar. If you're trying to be the superstar, you have to have him show up and at least, shoot the ball decently well, even if you're gonna you got 26 points, but you did it on 23 shots. You did it on 9 of 23 shots. So every time you miss a shot is an opportunity that somebody else could have scored or you could have scored. And so the 26 points is, I think, a little misleading when you're shooting like that, And then of course,
very much
in the last 3 games where he put up 15 turnovers in 3 games, the Celtics don't have a point guard, they don't have a ball handler. And it showed in these last 3 games, and they started kind of rushing and getting ahead of themselves in the offense and trying to make plays that were too flashy, and they couldn't. And then because they can't move the ball and get open shots, they start trying to do one-on-one, and then everybody starts shooting poorly in a one-on-one because it's a lot easier to defend and get help defense over when there's no ball movement. And I think they honestly, they just fell apart, I think, after game 4, where they had it, and they had it in game 4, and then they blew it. I think that was the tipping point. You lost at home when you could have gone up 3-1 and you had the lead and blew it. That was a young team, first time in the finals, versus an experienced team that had been there before and knew how to close. And that's how it ended up.
And I think what it comes down to is if that game that Curry, because the Celtics were up 3-1 in that game where Curry didn't, or was it 3-2 in that game where Curry didn't play well, right? They already had 3, but
it was 2. That was game 5. It was 2-2.
2-2. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was 2-2, and it was like, okay, if there's ever a time where we were going to win, it's when Curry had 16 points and was 7 of 22 and didn't hit a 3.
Yeah,
that would be it.
Yeah. So, and then with game 6, the final game, then you have Draymond hitting it. It doesn't help because that's the guy that's the guy you could leave open and he could miss. But with Tatum's numbers, I equate it to in an NFL quarterback. You see his numbers. He's got over 430 yards and 5 touchdowns, right? In a losing effort. My dad always taught me this. If they lost and he put up those numbers, it doesn't matter. Because in reality,
Dak Prescott.
Wow.
No, I'm serious though. But I mean, seriously, a lot of his, at least in the past couple of years, he would put oh man, he's 400 yards, something like that, and a great accuracy. He's completing a large percentage of passes, but you lose.
You can say the same thing for. And say the same thing for Romo too.
Sure,
that's what.
But I'm just saying, in recent memory,
recent memory, it's
that's a perfect analogy. You have the stats look great, especially was it last year when it was the first opening games, right, where they went up and it was against the Falcons, not this past year but the year before, right, where they were down and it took them garbage time and the Falcons collapsing to get the win. And Dak's stats looked really good, but they almost lost. So the stats don't really, matter that much if you can't win. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't tell that's why, and this is kind of a little off topic, but it makes sense. That's why it's important in our positions where not only are we supposed to like tell the story of the game and the analysis of it, but also bring in stats because that does help. But it is still very important to bring in the story of the game and the analysis of it because, like we're saying, stats don't tell the whole story because, like you said, Tatum 26 points, 28 points, that looks good until you see his shooting percentage was bad and they lost, and he wasn't really that helpful. So I mean, congratulations to the Golden State Warriors, even though they're the reason why I stopped watching basketball in the first place. So
they still got something going on there. And speaking of something going on there, it's time we talked about it. Steph Curry.
Yeah,
Now has the Finals MVP under his belt. One of the only things a lot of people were saying was missing from his trophy case and keeping him from breaking into the upper echelon of players of all time. So now we need to talk. Where for you does Curry stand in the all-time greatest list?
For me, my all-time greatest list, we're going LBJ 1, Jordan 2. And if I'm going to be honest, I'm putting Curry third because Steph Curry, I think what a lot of people don't consider when they talk about, upper echelon status and why is reinvention. And for Steph Curry, and I learned this from Ryan, I put people on my Mount Rushmore who changed the game.
They do.
Steph Curry changed the way basketball is played, not just in the NBA, not just in college, but on an everywhere level. I remember growing up in the early 2000s, and I know you do too. Basketball back then, it was all about the flash. I mean, it still kind of is, but it's a different type of flash.
Right.
It was
it's
back
not
then,
the dunk, flashy
exactly.
passes. Now it's all the logo three.
Passes.
Yeah.
Threes. That is how you get noticed in basketball. If you can't make threes, nobody can. Like you said, it used to be about flashy passes and fancy dunks. Now it's about ball handling skills and three-point shots. And with Steph Curry, he created ugly shoes, but beyond that, he created a new era of basketball, which is three-point shooting. Get people on your team who can shoot three-pointers. And I think also he was a big influencer on the scoring point guard. Now, don't get me wrong, you had people way before him like Magic Johnson and other people doing that, but Curry was one of those people. He could be a facilitator because I'm not doubting Curry's facilitator skills at all, but he was a great hybrid of I can facilitate well, but I can also score really well. And I think for Steph, being that he's the greatest three-point shooter of all time, because that's not deniable, being that he's one of the best dead eyes in the history of all sports, because every sport kind of takes an element of accuracy. It takes an element of accuracy, and Steph Curry has that to a T, and it's insane. So I think for me, it would have to be third on, my list of all-time greats. And of course, not everybody's going to put him there. But for me, it's about the fact that he reinvented the game. He changed the way basketball's played. He's been productive. And in all honesty, he's become the greatest at a specific point, a part of basketball that has translated to become the most popular part of basketball.
Yeah, I think undeniable a first ballot Hall of Famer easy.
Oh, yeah.
My only thing with him is I think so for sure. I think top 10 all time.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure, top 10. That's not debatable anymore. I think I agree with you. He changed the game. One of the best shooters, pure shooters of all time. My only deal is Jordan and LeBron are so far above Curry at 1, 2, even if you're to put Curry at 3, because LeBron and Jordan had excellent defensive prowess as well. I don't think anybody will say that Curry is of the same defensive caliber as Jordan and LeBron. And so I think there's a few other players that I would put above him before number 3. I'm thinking maybe like Kareem, because Kareem was also a great defender. It's easy when you're when you're like that much bigger, right? And
When
it's
you're
not
over
like
7 feet.
yeah, and he's not like dominant in terms of like Shaq dominant, where he would like
Oh no.
absolutely control anywhere within the paint.
Yeah.
But I think I would be so bold as to put him in a top 5. Top 10 for sure. And I think, and that's the thing, he's still got a couple more years at least. And with the Warriors, you could very well see him back in the playoffs making another run next year, because
Oh
a lot of
yeah.
this team is going to stick around.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
And they
another
found
couple
their fourth splash
championships.
brother. I mean,
Yeah.
their third splash brother. Draymond is not a splash brother, but and I think and I 100% agree with that aspect of it. And I think for me, the reason I put him at that level is not because I don't know sports, guys, but it's because I think he makes up for what he lacks in defensive prowess in game reinvention, in my opinion, because that's huge,
Right.
because it affected the game on such a level. And for me, growing up and seeing slasher predominant basketball, and then you see this guy come in and he's like, yeah, I can go to the rim, but I'm going to step out here. And he really turned it into, you have to be able to shoot the three. I don't care what position you play. You can't shoot three. You're not worthless because there's something else that you're good at, but you're not going to, because let's be fair. You and I grew up where it was the dunks and the flashy passes making Sports Center.
Yep.
Now it's 3-point shots. So, and like I said, you look at college ball, then you look at high school ball. You can probably look at pee-wee ball, elementary ball. You can look at these different AA ball. You can look at these different areas of basketball and see people who all they want to do is jack up 3-pointers. Why? Because Steph Curry came in, took it, and he made it an art form and took it to a level to where it's like, because when you were growing up and you had these guys like Reggie Miller, and I was growing up and had guys like Ray Allen, we knew those guys were sharpshooters, but even they, when you watched them, we were like, man, these are some of the best shooters of all time. But you can't rely on that consistently. With Steph Curry, it was rely on that as many times as possible. And now it's become, okay, you need to, like, if you're a point guard, you need to be able to shoot. And I think that's kind of the thing now. It's no more is it, okay, John Stockton or Chris Paul facilitator type. You just need to do that. Like I said, there's people like Lonzo Ball who are like that. But now it's, okay, if you're a point guard, you need to be able to shoot. And I'm not saying Steph Curry had a solo hand in that, because you have people like Damian Lillard, John Wall. You had different people who created that. But at the same time, Steph was the one who just, you have to put him at the king of that. A point guard who can shoot and score, you think is Steph Curry. You don't think of anybody else.
Yeah. And man, like I said, I think there's just, I don't deny anything about his offensive game. I think he's got some of the best handles as well in the NBA. He's so agile and wiry. He can find his way around any defenders. It's just, there's that added aspect of he's not bad on defense. I don't think anybody would say he's bad. I mean, he had to go head to head against Kyrie Irving back in the finals that they lost and did pretty well for the most part. But
yeah,
he's just not. It's just the people that are at the top were so much better all the way around.
Yeah, you can't say Steph Curry was an all around player, because he wasn't.
Best
he was
shooter. He's probably the best offensive weapon that we will ever see in the NBA.
Oh, without a doubt.
But that puts him top 10 all time for me, maybe top 5. But yeah. I still think Jordan and LeBron are just so far above Curry and Tim's in terms of all time best.
Oh no, without a doubt. And because with Jordan, here's the thing, with Jordan and LeBron, we can sit here and say we will never see athletes like those guys ever again, ever. Because people thought, well, we're never going to see another Jordan. LeBron James showed up. We're never going to see another one of him, because there was levels to it. With Jordan, it was like, you're never going to see a player with that much amount of drive and determination and passion and aggression to go out there and play when he was sick and just win championship after championship. And then you take that package and then you put it in a guy who's 6'9", 250. And then it's just like, okay, he's like Jordan in all those aspects, and he's a physical specimen to boot. We'll never see that again. And then you have Steph Curry, and I will say this: I feel like there will always be another Steph Curry type. I'm not saying they will be as efficient as he was.
I mean that's why we say it's like a LeBron type or a Jordan type player, right? Like we
Yeah.
know that they're not actually Jordan or LeBron, so we will get like a Curry type player where there's a guy that's shooting and making a ridiculous amount of threes, but they're not going to be Steph Curry.
No, and that's the thing, and I think that's what will always put Curry in the third for me. Besides game reinvention, is there will never be another Steph Curry. Because I guarantee you when you were growing up, because I didn't get the chance to experience him, but people were like, oh, there will never be another Reggie Miller. Okay, there wasn't. There was a guy who surpassed Reggie Miller. And there's just one of those things where it's like Steph Curry is someone who people mimic, they imitate, and also, and this is important when it comes to sports, there's a ceiling to Steph Curry's greatness in the terms of pop culture, because you have Jordan in the late 80s and 90s, mid 80s and 90s, was everywhere. Commercials, movies, his sneakers, which I own so many pairs of.
Gotta be the shoes, Mason.
It's
gotta be the shoes.
Oh yeah, man. Jordan was everywhere, and it was one of those things where he's a pop culture icon. You can go anywhere on this globe and people will know who Michael Jordan is, because basketball is everywhere. Same thing with LeBron James. He's a pop culture icon, a meme, a reference. You can go anywhere on this globe and you will know who LeBron James is. Can we say the same thing about Steph Curry? Yes, in the terms of basketball players, because basketball is everywhere. Besides soccer, soccer, baseball, and basketball are the three most diverse sports, because there's a team for those all over the world. But do you think if someone who didn't play basketball in Czechoslovakia, and you went up to them and you said, Steph Curry, do you know that guy? Do you think you would get a yeah, sure, like you would if you said LeBron or a Jordan? Because you didn't have to watch basketball to know those guys.
I'm just going to backpedal just a second, because Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore.
It's
the Czech Republic and Slovakia, just so we're clear. That hasn't been around since like the 90s, I don't think. I don't remember when they split, but
yeah, no. Well, we're not covering geography.
Just wanted to point it out there.
I know.
Yeah,
that
Steph
hit me
Curry,
in my head when I said it. I was like, oh, they don't exist.
I'm calling you on it. Steph Curry, 8-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champ, 4-time NBA champ, 8-time All-NBA, 2-time MVP, Western Conference Final MVP this past year, Finals MVP finally added to the trophy, and the NBA 75th anniversary team. And whenever he feels like retiring, an instant Hall of Famer. So,
oh yeah,
Steph Curry, one of the greatest of all times.
Yep.
All right, so now let's go to a little bit of local stuff, because
local for you, not me.
I mean, you're a Cowboys fan, so
no, I know, it's just area based.
Oh boy,
ain't nowhere local.
All right, so we're going to touch on this really quick because it makes me mad, and I'm having a good day, and I don't want to be mad for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, Cowboys mandatory minicamp was this past week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay.
Yep.
For the second straight year, Mike McCarthy has been fined for violating rules regarding off-season practices, and the Cowboys have lost an OTA for next year for having practices that were too physical as deemed by the NFL. Now, just that by itself, if it was a one-time thing, I'm not horribly upset by. But we already lost an OTA this year because McCarthy got fined for the same thing last year. The exact same thing. So you knew probably that whatever this was wrong.
Yeah.
In addition, on Wednesday, Mike McCarthy canceled practice and media availability for the players for a group dynamic event, which basically means everybody went to Topgolf instead of practicing. And then it keeps getting worse. But wait, there's more. Billy
Ryan's
Mays
about to
here
get
for
hot.
ESPN. Then the veterans were excused from practice and workout on Thursday while the rookies met with coaches and had their final weightlifting session. So let me ask you something.
Okay.
What kind of culture are the Cowboys building here? Because it would seem to me that a team that embarrassed themselves a number of times during games last year and then embarrassed themselves in the playoffs would be hungry enough to go and have a full mandatory minicamp. But I know they've got more, but what kind of culture are we building here for the Cowboys? And this is not just Mike McCarthy's fault. Shame on the veterans. Shame on Dak Prescott and all these veterans who, instead of saying, you know what, coach, maybe we should practice on Thursday. Let's get the reps in while we can. They said, no, we're going to take our days off. What does that show the rookies? What does any of this suggest to you as a Super Bowl contending team?
What, when I hear stuff like this, it reminds me of Camp Cupcake. And it's a different version of Camp Cupcake in the sense of one thing that I said about Dallas, and I go back to this because that's what I remember from the Hard Knocks. I said, I do not like the culture of Dallas, the morale, because there's a lot of, we're here. It's about as far as we're going to go. And when I would look at a lot of the players on the team, especially D-Law at the time, I was like, okay, are these guys just here for the check? Like, are they like, why else are they here? Because Dallas is one of those teams that have a very cushy culture because they don't push themselves, in my opinion, when they need to. I will never forget it. Hard Knocks. They're supposed to be doing drills. All of a sudden, Mike McCarthy goes, so what we're going to do, and I scoffed at this, and I was like, what is this? We're going to do mojo. We're going to do mojo drills. Yeah, when you get the ball and you score, I want to see your best touchdown dance, or when you dance to the end, whatever. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? Mojo, what is that? Why are we wasting our time? And to hear that, it's one of those things where it's like, when I hear that and that he did it for the second time, especially knowing what we know as Cowboys fans with what Jerry Jones said about Mike McCarthy and who we know Jerry Jones really does want as head coach, I think Mike McCarthy's just checked out. I think in my opinion, I think he's unprofessionally checked out. And because he knows, okay, this is technically going to be my last year because I know Jerry doesn't really want me here. And it's one of those things where it's like, I may be wrong. I'm not saying that like it's finite and I'm right, but I just feel like that because like you said, if he did this, I'm not saying, we're not saying he did all of the same things last year, but if this same fine came down on him last year for the same thing and he did it again, I feel like there was motive this time behind it because he's like, I know this is technically going to be my last year and Jerry doesn't really want me here. And that because our defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, who Jerry wants as the head coach, told Mike McCarthy, hey, if you want me to go somewhere so this can be your team, I'll go somewhere. Because even he knew, because Jerry, with the big mouth that he has, spoke on his radio show, he knew, okay, I know Jerry really wants me to be the head coach, so he's coming down on Mike. So I'll leave so Mike can be the actual coach. But he was like, no, we need you, da-da-da. So I think Mike is just checked out. He's like, whatever. We're gonna do what we want to do.
And if that's the case, then I think that blame falls even more on the veterans.
Yeah.
Like Dak Prescott is supposed to be the leader of this team, along with Ezekiel Elliott and all these guys. And I can't imagine looking at last year's performance as a player and going like, you know what? We could all just go hang out at Topgolf instead of getting every rep that we can to be better for next year. Because we let everybody in every Cowboys fan down last year with how much we collapsed. Like they did. that on paper may have been, I think we said this during the podcast last semester, that on paper, this may have been the best chance in the last 20 years the Cowboys had to win a Super Bowl in terms of talent when you look at it. And they couldn't even get past the first round of playoffs. They couldn't get a bye. They choked several times during the regular season.
Without a doubt.
And then I think every Dallas Cowboys fan should be worried about what happened at this mandatory minicamp.
Oh, yeah.
I think every Dallas Cowboys fan should look at this and mark this down as a point as something to look back to. If the Cowboys have another, I guess it's not 9-7 since we have an extra game, 9-8, 10-7 season, get bounced in the first round. Look at this mini camp right here and say they had opportunities to get better.
Yeah.
And the veterans on the team said no. And then this makes it even more abundantly clear why they couldn't come out prepared to play for games last year, right? If this is the culture that they're building, no wonder that, you can't come out and be hyped for a playoff game and look flat for the first. I mean, because instead of working, you want to go play Topgolf.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you just said it. It's one of those things where it's like when you have the opportunity to get better, take those opportunities. And you know what? You're right. I've defended Dak Prescott, especially against you, because even I feel like, okay, you're coming down a little hard on the guy. But no, there's no excuse for any of this from any Cowboy. I don't care who he does, what he is. That's backwards. What he is or what he does. It's.
I got what I'm picking up what you're putting down.
There's no excuse for it. And I think when we break this down and we look at it from the perspective of why does this matter so much? It matters because Dallas is one of those teams that have a long pedigree of winning that we have not seen since the 90s. And Dallas is, because I'm telling you, the collective gasp of Cowboys fans in AT&T Stadium in Denton and around the world when the clock hit 0 and our name had the L next to it, crying, upset, just stumbling around. I was angry, and our good friend Sarah Baskets was too. We were all angry for 3 days. 3 days and longer, because it's one of those things where it's like, there has never been, in my opinion, being a Cowboys fan and knowing people like Alec and you and Sarah, there has never been a team that has this collective push behind them of the fan base is so loyal and supportive and we root for them every chance we get. We care so much and they let us down. And then when we hear news like this, I've said this from day one, a lot of the Dallas Cowboys roster are guys who play football to make money. They do not play it because they love it. They do not play it because they want to be champions. They play it to buy a mansion and a house on Key West, and that's what they do it for. They play it, Ryan, to go on vacations where your background is right now. That's what they do. Yeah. That's what they do it for. And
think about, Ezekiel Elliott going to, when he was suspended, instead of being with the team, he was out in Cancun.
Yeah, Cancun.
I mean, he was training, but he's training in Cancun, not with the team. Or not, in Dallas, so he can be ready to go and still be interacting. It's
100.
All right, let's move on
because
I'm upset, and we're gonna just remember, Cowboys fans, in about December, just remember how the season's gone, and remember
this
June
moment,
17th, 2022, because I'm going to be adding this to the Ryan was right counter on my reels. Okay.
Oh God.
In lighter news in the Metroplex, the World Cup is actually coming back to the United States and Dallas. First time since 1994. Jerry World has been selected along with 11 other cities in the U.S., 11 total in the U.S., 2 in Canada, 3 in Mexico for World Cup games. And word on the street is AT&T Stadium could be the host for the final game, which would be huge because the finals always get huge attendance draws. I think the 2018 one was something like 76,000. So basically that's almost, Cowboys attendance, for World Cup game.
Yeah.
And those people travel. I mean, those are international teams traveling. It's not like Dallas fans who are already in Dallas are going to a Cowboys game.
No, trust me. I know. And here's the thing, with being a wrestling fan, I recognize fandom when I see it. Yeah, no, those people, they travel, and this is one thing. I don't watch soccer, don't care for it personally. I respect the sport and that it's very diverse, but the fan base is what really kind of blows my mind, because you have these fans who travel far and wide. These people have never been to America before, some of them. And then when a soccer game is happening in certain places, everybody's there, and it's crazy, man. I like the environment, just not the sport.
Well, yeah, my only concern with this is that if AT&T Stadium just hosts the final, tickets will be so expensive that people here who enjoy soccer and live here won't be able to go experience a game, right? Like if AT&T Stadium gets one game and it's the finals, that'd be really cool. But the ticket prices are going to be absolutely ridiculous. And so I think that'd be a real shame, because I would love to go to a game, because I'd love to go to especially the finals, because the atmosphere is going to be absolutely insane. But, if it's $1,000 a seat, tough luck,
Yeah. You got that 1,000, Ryan.
No, 1,000 a seat? Absolutely not. No. So we'll see how it goes. The other contestant for the finals is the MetLife Stadium, home of the Giants and the Jets.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. So I think I'm hoping that we at least get, maybe a couple group stage games in, so people that do want to see a World Cup game and see some of the best players in the world can at AT&T Stadium. Because I guess you could travel down to Houston. I think Houston's going to have they've got NRG's going to host a few games, so maybe they'll have a group stage game.
Oh wow, something to go right in Houston for once, sports related.
Wow. So yep, World Cup 2026 across North America. Dallas will have at least one game, hopefully more. And excuse you, sir, he's being a little too comfortable there. So yeah, go North America, go Dallas.
Go Dallas. Speaking of
comfortable, okay. So
we're gonna get to some uncomfortable.
Let's get to some wrestling, because some of this news was so big it made its way onto my news feed, which I have no wrestling news at all in my news feed, and then some of the stuff that came out today made it onto the news feed. So I'm like, all right, Mason, if this is this big, I want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, so of course we have to start with the big thing, the head honcho of the WWE, Vince McMahon, and stepping down from his position as CEO. His daughter, Stephanie McMahon, will be taking his duties for the time being. Here's the thing. I know some people are like, this is disgusting. And it is. I'm not saying that it's not. But I guess this is my perspective as a minority in the United States of America. And obviously, if you guys haven't seen Vince McMahon, you can probably tell by the name, he's not a minority guy. He's a white guy, if you had no idea. But I think the thing for me is none of this, people have been shocked and blown out of their minds. None of this shocked me. None of it. Not the affair allegations, not the payoff and the NDA, not the fact that they, in this investigation have found more elements of that misconduct and things like that from him and the executive vice president of talent relations, John Laurinaitis, which if he gets fired, thank God. But, none of this really surprised me. And, I know some people are confused on how this works. So with the WWE, it's a publicly traded company, which means it has investors and board members, which means, yes, Vince McMahon can be removed as CEO of this company. I know some people thought he's the CEO, he founded it, they can't remove him. Yes, they can. When it became publicly traded, he can be removed. So, and I think as wrestling fans go, we've wanted Vince out for a while, just because the product has gotten so bad, because there's just some stuff that he likes to put on television because of the writing team and other people that just don't make any sense. And I think, and when I say that, no, I'm not saying that we're happy that this happened to him. No, we're not glad that this happened, because that means we're glad that he committed acts of misconduct against innocent women, or, that, he had an affair on his wife, which, newsflash, folks, it's not the first time. And despite the fact that Vince and Linda are married, they're not that close. They've been living separate lives. They just live in the same house. So that's why none of that coming out really surprised me, just because when you're a CEO of a publicly traded company that does huge business, and when it's a business such as wrestling, and because I know Vince McMahon and I know some of the stuff he's done and said, and I'm not saying he's the worst man in the world, but there have been stories to make him come off as that. Hearing that, he had an affair, and to keep the girl quiet, he paid her $3 million and made her sign an NDA. Because here's the thing, she was not the one who came out with this, because legally she can't. It was someone tipped off the New York Post, and they got a hold of it. And then when that made news, the WWE board, they had no choice but to look into it. I mean, what else are you going to do? Ignore it because it's the chairman? No, you're going to look into it. And, it's a weird time for the WWE, because Ryan, so Vince has two kids, Stephanie and Shane, so it's Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon. And this last January around Royal Rumble time, Shane McMahon got sent home, not over allegations and stuff like that. He's a good dude. It's just he gets a little crazy sometimes with power and likes to put himself in top positions on the card and in matches. And he was the lead producer on this Royal Rumble, this last pay-per-view, and the last Royal Rumble match this last year, and it was horrible. And when he was responsible for it, his dad sent him home. And the interesting thing about Stephanie is they were kicking her out, again, just from the business side of things, not because of allegations, but they were kicking her out because people were like, oh, this position she has, she's not really doing a good job. So she was dead set on taking a leave of absence. She was about to go home, spend time with her family, and then her father is like,
now she's the CEO.
Yeah, I mean, which is, go her, that's great. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on that aspect of it. What did you think when you heard about it, considering your limited wrestling knowledge? But
I was not surprised that somebody with let's say as storied a history as Vince McMahon would do something like this. It's not like, oh my God, why would he do something like this? Man, Texas summers.
Yep.
So, obviously it's the right thing to do. Step down, move aside while you investigate and reinstate whatever. So, we'll get, I'm there. I think we're good. We'll see. As a super non-watcher of WWE or wrestling in general, this did not shake me down to my very core or anything like that. It was just like, I knew it was a big deal when something like that popped up on my feed, though. I was like, oh, well, this is a little serious then. So I think it's the right move. I don't think there's anybody that would contest it's the wrong move in the circumstances.
Nope.
So Vince McMahon, you got caught. Something may or may not come out with it. We'll see. But I mean, I think the biggest issue with these corporations is a lot of times it's like, well, we've investigated ourselves and we found we did nothing wrong. Carry on, and you're just like, well, okay. So I don't think Vince McMahon will come out of this any maybe only slightly worse off than he was before.
Yeah, and see, the thing with the WWE is they're already the evil empire when it comes, into wrestling promotions and companies, because they have, as a company, have done some wrong things in public and private. To many wrestlers can tell you horror stories about working for the WWE. So, they're already disliked by the pro wrestling community anyway. Not me per se, because like I said, I'm a minority man. I could walk out of my house and people could perceive me as a criminal, and I can get shot tomorrow. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. So with people owning a company in Stamford, Connecticut, I expect malpractice and things like that. That doesn't mean I okay it. It's just it doesn't surprise me. And the thing about it, okay, because an example of that, it's not bad, but it's just one of the reasons why people kind of scoff at them. When 9/11 happened, they had a tribute show, and it was good. Nothing bad really happened. Excuse me, until Stephanie, and she was a lot younger at this time, but Stephanie was doing a backstage pre-tape because they were getting all the superstars' thoughts on 9/11. And she made the comment, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because why wouldn't it? 9/11 just happened. And she made the comment on SmackDown, my family's been under attack too. And she was referring to her father's investigation with the federal government into, steroid use and all that type of stuff. And that, see, yeah. you know what I'm saying?
It's a nice analogy there, Stephanie. Well done.
So, it's things like that have caused people, WWE, not to be endeared by a lot of the pro wrestling community. But the interesting thing about this from a standpoint is there's a guy who wrestles. It's one of my favorites right now. His name is Theory. It used to be Austin Theory, but now it's just Theory, which is a terrible name. His gimmick, besides, him taking selfies and he's an arrogant cocky heel, is that he's Mr. McMahon's protege. He's Mr. McMahon's pet project. And he says this in his promos. So I don't know with Vince McMahon's condition if he's going to be able to say that again.
Strike that out from the script there. You're like, maybe I had a change of heart. I don't want to be that guy anymore.
So the WWE will handle that. And sticking with the WWE, there's some AEW news, but sticking with the WWE, there was a rumor going around, and it's still going around, that Sasha Banks has been released by the company. I remember talking to you about her and Naomi's walkout. It's still a rumor because the WWE has not confirmed this. Somebody on Wrestling Inc., which there are many pro wrestling sites, have reported that she's been released by the company. And then other people like Fightful Select with Sean Ross Sapp said that he talked to the guy who posted that and said that it hasn't been confirmed, but it also hasn't been denied. And there's, been more information that her lawyers have been trying to set up her release because her and Naomi's contracts have been frozen. So, it's one of those things where it's like, we don't know what's going on. If Sasha Banks were to be released again, I'm aware you don't know her, but she is what you would call, in the last few years of professional wrestling, more than Charlotte Flair, more than really Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks is leaning into being a pop culture megastar because she's been in The Mandalorian, and because she's a nerd like you and I are. So she, was a prominent character in The Mandalorian. She's been offered other things to do in Hollywood. She has been spotted at Spider-Man movie premieres and things like that. So we don't know what she has her hand in. So there's rumors that, she's, if she's done with wrestling, she'll go into Hollywood because there's offers for her, or she'll do something else. Hope she doesn't go to AEW, but, I have no control over that. I'm not her. So, that's really big because we don't know where she is, because she's very popular in wrestling in general. She connects with the fans really well, even WWE fans. So if it's true that she's released, WWE just suffered a huge loss, huge. And then past that, in AEW news, Jeff Hardy got a DUI again. For those of you who don't know, like Ryan, Jeff Hardy, part of one of the most iconic wrestling tag teams of all time in the Hardy Boys, with his brother Matt. Jeff Hardy has had a constant battle with substance abuse. And this dated back to like when he was released from the company a couple times from the WWE because he had failed numerous amount of drug tests. He's had problem with both drugs and alcohol. He's been high, he's been drunk. And unfortunately, one of those he's been during a wrestling show. It was Impact Wrestling. It was, I think it was Turning Point. I can't remember the pay-per-view. But he was supposed to have a match against wrestling icon Sting. And he showed up and he was high out of his mind. and the match didn't really happen. Sting rolled him up and beat him in 4 seconds, and the crowd chanted, "This sucks, this sucks." And Sting walked up the stage saying, "Yeah, I agree." They didn't say it sucked. They said something else, but I'm not going to repeat it. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like for AEW, because AEW just signed Jeff Hardy. And the thing was, Jeff Hardy was in WWE. He said, "Yeah, I'm going to finish my career with WWE." But one of the things that happened, it was during a live event, and Jeff Hardy was wrestling in a tag team match. And then all of a sudden, he got out of the ring while he was still like the legal guy in the tag match. He got out of the ring and started walking up the crowd and just started walking in the fans and stuff. And he walked away from the match apropos of nothing. So the WWE was worried and was like, "Okay, we need you to go to rehab." And he was like, "No, I'm not high. I'm not drunk. I'm fine." I'm so so he got tested and the results came back negative. And so because they had released him because they said either you go to rehab or we're releasing you. And he said, "Release me because I know I wasn't on any substances and I'm not going to go to rehab because that's messed up." So they released him. And then WWE, when those results came back negative, tried so hard to get Jeff Hardy back. Because he's a legend. And they were like, "Okay, we'll induct you in the WWE Hall of Fame, this up and coming Hall of Fame. We'll induct you in the Hall of Fame. You're going to get a big push." And he said, "No, I don't want it because you guys didn't believe me when I said I wasn't on substances, and I'm not going to lower myself." And then he's been taking, because Jeff Hardy's a daredevil, and he's been taking these crazy bumps in AEW. And then all of a sudden, in the last match he had in AEW, he got concussed 5 minutes in the match and doesn't remember the rest of it at all. And the match went on for a while, and he doesn't remember any of it. So, he was doing a concert because he's also a musician, was drinking whiskey, and, he got pulled over. His blood alcohol level was 0.294, which is triple. Yeah,
That's
triple.
Almost quadruple. That's a bit high, bit over the legal limit.
Yeah, especially in Florida. So, and like I said, he's had a history of issues like this. It was like and it spans like 3 years. It was like 2017, 2018, 2019. I don't think it was that in that exact order, but it was like they were in succession of each other. Like this has been a multiple occurrence, whether it was drugs or alcohol. He's had DUI arrests on his record. And what sucks is, so not only was he driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence, because that's what DUI stands for, he was driving under the influence, but he was driving on a suspended license. He doesn't have a driver's license because, again, this has happened so many times before. His license was suspended.
Right.
So how he got a car and was driving and was able to do this, and the most important thing is, so AEW, Tony Khan, who is Shad Khan's son, and we all know Shad Khan's owner of the Jaguars. This is Tony's son who has the wrestling company. He suspended Jeff Hardy indefinitely without pay, and Jeff will be reinstated when he completes a program. So I mean, if that doesn't work, they're just gonna have to release him because they're trying to get a new TV deal because I don't know if you're aware of this, but Warner Brothers or Warner Bros, along with like TBS and things that television network is working with Discovery now, and so Warner Media. And so they have new executives, and the new head executive is a woman and things like that. And so they're trying to negotiate a new deal, and they can't do that if one of their stars is not fit, so that's why they had to suspend him without pay. So, it's thankfully, nobody was hurt when Jeff was swerving on the road. I mean, he was going 15 miles an hour. That's how he drew the attention of a lot of people because he was going like 15 miles an hour, swerving on and off the road and things like that. And thankfully, no one was in his vicinity because Tammy, I think it's Cinch. I don't know her last name, but this is a former WWE. She's not a Hall of Famer anymore. They had to kick her out of it, but her name is Tammy. She went by Sunny in the WWF. She was a valet and a manager. She's had multiple DUI problems too with drugs and alcohol abuse. And this last time she killed an elderly man driving under the influence, involuntary manslaughter. So, it's one of those things where it's like, this is a very serious issue, And man, in the world of wrestling, dude, it's kind of a storm right now because a lot of stuff is going on.
Right. Well, that'll wrap up the main event summer side card for this week. Touched on a lot of good stuff. And
Ryan didn't get hot this time. I with the Cowboys thing, he was close.
I got pretty toasted. I was just like, I don't want to be mad all day. So I don't want to harp too long on the Cowboys.
There's levels to it, Ryan. There's levels.
Yeah.
Because when we were doing the podcast, he got hot.
Well, and now I've already set this expectation in my mind now for the Cowboys for a season. So if my expectation comes true, I've got to pace my heat index, shall we say. I've got to make sure that's spread out across and I have enough for the entire season.
That's fair, yeah.
God, all right. We're done. No, we're not getting back on it. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see y'all next time. Mason Shepard, Ryan Bolton signing